Hi class, my name is Brianna Contera, and today I decided to teach you a lecture regarding encoding and decoding. I know that we all read the article by Stuart Hall, and I know that in my opinion, I did find it a little bit hard to understand and interpret. So I figured that if I did this lecture, hopefully I'd be able to at least provide you all with a little bit more of a better understanding of what encoding decoding really is. Okay, so let me just get started. Well, first, just to understand this general breakdown, I wanted to give some definitions. So encoding refers to the conversion of something into a coded form. So in this case, it's in regards to literature and writing, things like that. So typically you'll see written we'll get to the next part, but basically in the most basic terms, it's converting something into a coded form. And then following that, we see decoding, which is to convert a coded message into an intelligible language, which is where we come to interpret what we're reading, what we're hearing from media and other forms of media. Speaking of media, I want to tell you about mediums. So mediums of communication, excuse me, refers to things like television, newspaper, and in today's modern society, I guess you could say, it would be smartphones, something such as billboards. But I do want to note that television was the most studied by Hall. And lastly, semiotics is the study of how an idea or object communicates meaning and what that meaning is communicating. So this refers to symbols. So symbols such as traffic lights, apples, emojis. We're all familiar with emojis, where we use those to convey a specific emotion. And then the people on the other end are interpreting that message. For example, red, yellow, and green on a stoplight command us to stop or go. Apples signify health and wellness, and emojis, as I just mentioned, reflect our emotions. Okay, so now that we've gone over some definitions, just a couple quotes by Hall from his reading on page 68. Language is encoded by those with the means of meaning production and is then decoded by its audiences, which in our case is us. So even us, we are decoding his article. Following a great video that I watched that also helped break down the encoding decoding article. University Quick Course on YouTube simplifies this as language is encoded. It's made to mean something. And so this is really the whole purpose of this encoding decoding dynamic. We're trying to put meaning into something we're reading or seeing in media. Stuart Hall proves his interest in coming to find how media represents and conveys an idea or point, but also seeks interest in the misrepresentation of this as well. So in the same sense, sometimes things are often misrepresented. And so I think that's what's so important about understanding how to decode certain things and how to read messages that are conveyed through media. And I do want to stress that the how aspect of this is really important to Stuart Hall. He wanted to understand how is this message being encoded and then conveyed to their audience through media. So he seeks to understand the processes behind presenting these concepts to an audience. And so to be a little bit more specific on encoding, the actions and productions that come from the media are molded by professional codes, and these codes attempt to hold mediums accountable to remaining unbiased while exerting information to their to their audience. However, institutional, political, and ideological beliefs may sway the stance. So really, these codes is just like what we are encoding into the message and then what's being conveyed. And then decoding, which follows, is how the audience is going to interpret, absorb this information, and then determine whether or not they agree with it. So they may adopt the dominant code, which is going to be one of the options. Second, we have adopt a negotiated code. So they might pick, I don't want to call it cherry picking, but like you pick and choose what part of the message applies to you, what relates to you and your beliefs. And then you might not be as open to some of the other things that the media is conveying in their message. And then following that, the third option is that the audience may 100% completely disagree with the code. And so they're going to push back completely and not find any agreements with the stance that the medium of communication is taking. So that is the lecture aspect, but I do want to make it a little bit more fun and kind of get my own audience to really join me in this lecture. So I will be screen sharing. Let's see how I can do this. And then we can try out some examples that I will guide you through. All right, so I hope that you guys can see this. I'm hoping, we'll see. So I have my notes up here, but when we get a little bit lower, you will see a couple charts that I thought really helped represent what I was trying to convey with my lecture. So here, something I just found on Google that I really thought helped convey this lesson. So 8 steps communication process with encoding and decoding. So here are a couple of factors that are really important in this process. There's always a message. You have an idea that is conceived, and then you want to share it. You want to put it out into the world. So then the people then take that idea and encode it. So we're encoding the idea in a message. What kind of message do we want to present to these audiences? And then next we have choice of medium or channel. So are we going to do this through Twitter, some sort of mainstream social media, or are we going to choose to do this on television? Let's see, or even something that's such as a magazine or newspaper. And then following that, we have transmission. So provides new communication channels to transmit the message. Just an additional step of how we just spoke about the mediums and how we're choosing to present that information. And then if we jump back over to this side, we see reception. And so that's how the audience is going to receive this message. Okay, and now we're hitting the plateau, and then we're going to jump on into decoding and understanding. So the audience has already seen this information, they're absorbing it, and now we're going to decode it. What is the message and how do we understand what the contents are? So this is the process of where we start to think what message is trying to be conveyed and what are they presenting me with? And now we're going into responding to the message. So this is how I mentioned up here, back to those 3 ways of adoption. Are we going to adopt it? Are we going to push back and rebuttal? And then lastly, we give feedback. So kind of the next step on whether or not we agree, whether or not we choose to adopt or push it away. This is kind of where the feedback aspect comes into play. All right, so now some examples to help us encode or rather decode something that's been encoded. For example, a stop sign, something we see almost every day. So the stop sign, the signifier is going to be the object, the physical sign that we see, and that's the medium of how we are interpreting the message. It's used to prevent traffic going through a particular route. So we know that we need to stop, and the signified is the meaning. So that means stop, you got to stop the car. 3 seconds, no California rule. Next, the one-way drive sign. The signifier, again, is that object. And then the meaning, the signified, is going to be that letting a driver know that you can only go in one way. And then lastly, the no smoking sign. Again, we have the object. And then the signified or the meaning is going to be that you should not smoke in a given area. Okay, so we'll continue a couple other ones like we just spoke about. The stop sign signifies danger, whereas an apple signifies health and wellness. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, and then a dove promotes peace. That's kind of the message that we are going to decode from that. Okay, just another little diagram. So we have the signifier, the physical, and then we have the sign, or excuse me, yes, the sign. So the object or thing being the apple. And then the signified we see right here is going to be the concept. So fruit, apple, freshness, healthy, like I mentioned, wellness, whereas that signifier back over here to the left is going to be red, leaf, round, apple, just the basic adjectives to describe what the sign is. Okay, and it looks like that is all. So I hope that this lecture was able to give you guys a little bit more, how do I stop screen sharing? stop share. Just a little bit more of an understanding of what the encoding decoding article was trying to like give us a little bit more insight about. And this is what the process looks like. So if you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.